Dakota Cowboy on Beck TV, presented to you each and every week by your friends at Dakota Community Bank and Trust. There are friends, too. Do you ever get the feeling like somebody's looking over your shoulder while you're working?
Right. That stone-faced expression they give you.
My good friend Jeff Gould, good to see you.
What an honor it is to be talking to you, my friend Bill. Yeah.
You're a media person. Did we even need to tell people where we're at? I mean, I think that the majority of the viewers watching right now.
However, with green screens as they are,
okay,
people are probably thinking we're in Detroit in front of some studio. No, we're actually in front of Mount Rushmore.
We're at Mount Rushmore at Keystone, South Dakota, and you just delivered America's story, which we will get into here in just a moment. First, a little background. Jeff and I worked at radio stations together. We go back to the late 80s. We worked together in South Dakota, and we've stayed in touch over the years. And now, as of late, you've been doing a lot of public speaking and writing. And first of all, what I find fascinating, of many things that you do I find fascinating, talk about funerals and how you got into, serving, officiating over funerals.
So this is a funny story. You'll appreciate this. So I get a job at a funeral home, and I'm working there about 3 months, and a guy says, hey, a family does not have a pastor. Would you mind doing the service? And I said, well, why? He said, well, you were a disc jockey. And I said, well, yeah. So apparently, there's this thought that as disc jockeys, we're one brand fits all. But I did that, and then I found out that I wouldn't say I liked it.
I think what you want to say is you found out you were fairly good at it. People responded to it.
Right. And so I agreed to do another one and another one. And then what I found out from it, Bill, was how much you learn when you talk to somebody. It's their whole life in an hour and a half because you're trying to get information for the funeral. And they just kind of cut to the chase. It's not about the weather. It's not about, whatever sports team. They start talking about what they did. And some of it was, and some of it was, all of it was wise, though. Because you go, I can learn from what that person's story is. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, and I probably have done about 600 or so, that's a lot of game film.
That is a lot of game film, but I think, is that how you developed learning to tell stories and finding out people's stories and sharing them the way that you have been?
Yeah, except that, don't you think you learned that when you were a kid? You're a storyteller, right? Mm-hmm. I probably got a lot of that from my dad, and he just was good at telling stories. You do learn the craft a little bit more. When you are in radio, you learn about extemporaneous speaking off the cuff, and then you hone that more when you talk to groups of people. So probably I'm the culmination of, 60 odd years of listening to stories, telling stories, and then kind of figuring out what the grain of the story is and pulling that out.
But wouldn't you say you have a natural curiosity, though?
Yes, that's a super important.
That's an important ingredient for a storyteller.
So when people, I look at people and people say, "What's this guy do?" I say, I wonder what this guy's story is. And when you go with that curiosity, it's kind of funny how quickly they get to the story. Mm-hmm. I mean, this guy, we were late to broadcast because this guy told me a gripping 10-minute story about how a guy survived. Let me see now. It was D-Day. It was North Africa. It was 3 other theaters. And then they're tossed by the SS into a livestock car to die and bleed. And then girls in Polish saying, and switching to America, they're going by saying, and we'll be dropping off water tonight, to try to, and he's telling me the story. And I'm going like, well, I know I'm supposed to be on Bill's show, but I got to listen to the rest of this story because it's amazing.
You're obviously fascinated by tales like that.
Right. But really, it could be simple, it could be complex, but everybody has a story that you go like, wow, that is solid. That's good stuff.
Through all that, you now are doing a program called America's Story. You are America's Storyteller. How was that conceived? When did the light bulb come on for telling the story like you told here at Mount Rushmore today?
Okay, so I was at the funeral home, and I was doing a lecture on Abraham Lincoln's funeral, which is pretty interesting. And I could talk for an hour on that if you wanted me to. But anyway, I would speak at service clubs about that as a sort of a public service thing. And then they said, well, now do one about Washington. Oh, okay. And now do one about somebody else. So they just needed somebody to speak. And I thought, well, if they need me to speak, why don't I pick the subject? And because I love history and because I live in South Dakota, I thought I'll just do Mount Rushmore.
Okay.
And then we start to come up on the 250th birthday of the country. Now, you remember the bicentennial. It was a big deal. Nobody's really talking about the 250th birthday that I could find. And I thought, this is terrible. And then I start to hear some dissensions, some bickering. And this is what I kind of realized. Now, you know when you do stories, right? Mm-hmm. If the story has a focus, you don't confuse your viewers or confuse your listeners. And that works backwards.
Or make them uncomfortable.
True,
yeah.
True. And this works backwards. If your viewers are confused or uncomfortable, they have forgotten their story. And as I looked at the landscape of America, I thought, I think that too many Americans have forgotten this story.
Well, you shared things today that I did not know. I did know, however, the story of the dog tags. I know others too, and I know why you probably didn't share that today. Mm-hmm. But did you find things out? Were you fascinated by some of the facts that you came up with?
Just the more you read, the more you learn, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the things I was asking myself, did the Star Spangled Banner, bombs bursting in air, did that happen before or after they burned the White House? In the War of 1812, the White House was burned. You can see pictures or paintings of it. Which happened first? So then I looked it up. Happened 2.5 weeks earlier. And so I thought, wow, what kind of pressure would that face when your central form of government, the symbol of it, is burned. And then they burned all of Washington, D.C. And then this is the thing that was fascinating to me. Okay. The whole city should have been burned, except all of a sudden there's a huge rainstorm and a tornado that drives the British out. And they say, forget it, we'll come back and sack it another time. Isn't that fascinating?
That is fascinating.
So then they get up and they roll downhill. Okay, let's just take Baltimore then. And so they go into Baltimore, as we talked about. They're bombing Fort McHenry. And they get a bomb through the roof of the powder magazine, and it's a dud. So when I talk about America, and you're aware, I talk about providence, because I think that there is too many miraculous things to have happened in the inception of this country. They just can't be coincidences. So I think providentially this country is here. And then I ask, if it's here providentially, why is it still here, and what is my responsibility to that, to not, drop the ball in my generation?
October 20th, you're going to have a room full of ranchers, cowboys, rodeo athletes, their wives and girlfriends. Yeah. Do you formulate what we saw here at Mount Rushmore to fit that audience? Or how do you do that?
I would say that I will probably add another 20% of different stuff that'll be more towards them. For example, I talk about the bounty of America as agriculture, and I'll talk about that. I'll probably express that out a little bit more. One of the things that's really interesting with me is how Teddy Roosevelt created the cowboy mystique. I mean, he had a lot to do with what the cowboy mystique is, and how it's just really interesting how a guy whose job it is to handle cattle then embodies so much other things that people like and are attracted to. Honest, to the point, hardworking, no nonsense, clear, all of that stuff. And I will definitely add that to the talk because it's a great part of America's story.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
October 20th at the Valley City Eagles Club, starting at 5 with a social. Tickets, if they're not at NorthDakotaCowboy.org yet, they will be soon. And wow, we're really looking forward to it. Thank you for agreeing to do that.
I cannot wait.
Yes.
I cannot wait.
Jeff, I kind of, I know that, you're the guy I look up to. You're my mentor. I got to tell you a little story. I got a story. I got a story. It pertains to Dakota Cowboy because a little over a year ago, I got the offer to do a TV show called Dakota Cowboy.
Right.
I reached out to Jeff and said, Jeff,
I remember this, yes.
what did you tell me?
Do it. Absolutely do it.
What you said, Jeff, was, I don't know what's going to happen if you agree to do this show, but I do know that you will regret it for the rest of your life if you don't do it.
Yes.
And here we are.
Yes.
We're doing okay. We're doing all right, and I thank you for that. So.
Well, here's what I know. I know that it will continue to grow, and I know that you will continue to grow in it, and you and others will be blessed through it. And I know it's a great story. It's a great story. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, a couple more things. Is there any question that I didn't ask that the viewer might be interested in? Do you wish I would have asked you anything, or did we pretty much cover, promoting East Streets West?
I would guess the only thing I would say is, is in terms of our meeting on the 20th, it's my mother's birthday. She has passed on, but she was a farm girl, and she loved livestock, and so I bring to that maybe just because of just a sense of appreciation. She was a farm kid in every good and imaginable way. Her dad was the superintendent of the school board. I mean, it's just exactly what you want a kid to grow up and be is who she was.
And she made amazing apple bars, right?
That's right. You remember.
One final question, Jeff. And it might throw you for a loop. I don't mean to make you uncomfortable or anything, or catch you off guard, but I know you're a broadcaster. I know you're a public speaker. I know you're an author. I know you're a podcaster. I know you're a husband. You're a father. Who is Jeff Gould? Who are you? Deep down inside, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
Storyteller. Absolutely. If you were to take, what do you do better than anything else? Well, I'm not saying I'm the best storyteller. I'm not saying that. But I am saying of all the things that I do, that is what I do best. And it took me till like 58 years old to finally narrow that niche down. That's how long it took. But that's what I am. I'm a storyteller.
You will be inspired with arguably the greatest story you have ever heard. October 20th, Mom's birthday at the Eagles Club in Valley City, East Streets West, with America's storyteller, Jeff Gould. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill.
You bet.
Yeah.
This is Dakota Cowboy, presented by Dakota Community Bank and Trust, and we'll be right back.